meeting. Committees, Education and Finance. My co-counselor, Corey Williams, Chair of Co-Finance. I'm the Chair of Education. With us today, Councilor Hogan, Nave, Madam President Hudson, Councilor Monto, Jones Rouser from the Syracuse City School District to bring us up to speed in the state of the STEAM school, right? And where we're going from here. That's Superintendent Tony Davis. And we have Chief of Finance, Mike Panchenko, our Commissioner of Assessment, Mr. Oja, Matt. And so we're here to learn a little bit about where we are with the STEAM school, bring us to speed in where the project it's going to. I know what the facts that we know. There were $78 million allocated through the state. I think there's another $10 million allocated through Micron through several years. Not sure how that will pan out. And then I'm sure that within the 5 years this was announced to today, the financial landscape has changed a lot. So this is what we're going to talk about, right?
Correct.
Okay. So do you?
I was just going to ask Superintendent Davis to give the council a quick refresher of the overall project and if you could highlight some of the unique aspects of the project before we move forward.
So I'll start us off and then I'll turn it over to CFO Pachenko because he has the intimate details of the finances. So, but to begin, project started, I want to say about 6 years ago, where the concept really came to fruition to have a county school where it's not just for the city, but the city did not qualify for another high school based on our enrollment. So in order to do this, we needed the county to partner with us to create a regional high school because we really wanted to upgrade some of the programs that we offer, do some of the high-level things, knowing that companies like Micron are coming to town, and we would have a great opportunity to set our students up to be eligible for some of those positions. So as that unfolded, we started talking about developing Central Tech, the old Central Tech. And the original number was about 74 million, which is what the county ended up borrowing initially. Of that, I think either 10 or 20 million might have been borrowed already to start the process. Since then, we've had a pandemic in the middle of that. After the pandemic, we saw costs skyrocket, which changed the overall price of the project. So we've gone from about 74 million expected to about 89 million. And then on top of that, we're talking about the borrowing cost of those funds, which the Syracuse City School District has taken on the responsibility of those, of covering those funds. So right now, and I'll let Mike get into the actual details of that. Right now, what it looks like is that it would cost us approximately $2.5, $2.7 million per year for the next 15 years. But we do have a plan in order to secure those funds to pay that lease agreement that we would be signing with the county. Mike, you want to speak a little bit?
Yeah, the original plan, again, 5 years ago, was for it to be about $74 million. We have, what we have to do is we have to work with the state education department. There's two ways to fund this. If it was our building, it would come through building aid. And since we're leasing the building, it will come through lease aid. So the state education department kind of treats it the same way they do with building aid. They've gone in and they've looked at our architectural plans, our drawings, the number of students, the programs, the spacing, and they do what's called an MCA, where they come and look at, okay, what would be your reimbursement for your construction of this project. So you get an MCA, which gives you 5 years to get reimbursed for that, and then you can't do anything for another 5 years and get state funding for it. We were allowed what's called a double MCA, which means we get twice the amount of money but that's over a 10-year period of time. And they don't allow for additional monies to be put into the project after that. So a 5-year MCA was about $44.5 million. The double MCA gives us $89 million. The Syracuse City School District's in a beneficial standpoint when it comes to renovation projects with our buildings because we get a 98% reimbursement rate from the state. This is unheard of throughout the state because, Rochester, I think the most they get is 80%. A lot of other places are 70, 75%. So we're going to get 98% back of the $89 million over 15 years in reimbursement of lease aid from the state. So now that's pretty much the MCA, double MCA is pretty much on par with our projected costs of the project of around $89 million. The 2% is the 2.5 that the district will have to come out of our pocket for. The district did set aside $10 million in our fund balance for this project. That's to help absorb some of the costs, but also we're planning on doing a number of innovative programs with computer technology, a clean room. You have the STEAM and the arts, so you're going to have a lot of supplies and materials and things like that. They're going to have to support that as well. So that's where the $10 million that's set aside in our fund balance is for. So the plan moving forward was it's going to be $89 million to do the project, but the county's going to have to borrow that money. The county has already got approval from the legislature to borrow $74 million. Once we have the lease signed and to State Education Department for their approval for this, they'll give us the okay. Once we have state ed approval that this is all set, reimbursed, the lease is going to be signed, then the county will go back to the legislature to increase the borrowing from $74 million to $89 million with the assurance that this is going to be paid back over the next 15 years. Once it's paid back over 15 years, then the city will buy back the building for $1, and it'll be like all of our other school district facilities. It'll belong to the city of Syracuse. The borrowing cost, the anticipated, again, borrowing is in flux, so it's all about timing. The anticipated total amount will be probably around $121 million. 121.6. I think we put in 121.6. Again, that's, they still have to borrow to see the other 15 and how that's going to shake out with cost over the 15 years. So our plan of how this is going to be paid, it's going to be about $35 million of additional cost to the Syracuse City School District over these 15 years. So what we're doing is we have a good number of capital projects. As I mentioned, our capital projects are all reimbursed at 98%. So what we're going to do is we're going to be doing about $35 million, $36 million worth of capital projects over the next couple of years. We're talking about the ITC Stadium that we're putting in. We're looking at a stadium over at Brighton Academy. We have a lot of roofing and projects that we have to do to upgrade our schools and our facilities. So the $35 million is going to be done and spent the next couple of years. Then we're going to get 98% of that back over the next 15 years. So there's going to be $2.3 million every year that we're going to get back from the state. So as we get those reimbursements back from the state, we're going to turn that revenue into part of our lease payment. So that will offset the cost of the borrowing over the next 15 years. So we're pretty much going to be able to double use of that $35 million because we're going to make sure we're using it now, and then we're going to get it back later. So that's kind of the plan.
Just a couple of excuse me, just a couple of clarifying points. The school is a phase-in model, so to start with 9th grade only, and that's it's 250 students per year for a total of 1,000 after 4 years. And then 100 of those students will be county students, 150 will be Syracuse City School District students. And you also asked a question about the Micron money. None of that money is meant for capital part of the project. A lot of that is programming. So for the programs that go inside the building is what that money is being used for. and it's actually the 10 million is over 10 years. So what it is I think they're allowing us to use the first, like we can do increments and maybe like do 5 million up front so that we can get a lot of the things set up and then work with Micron as to how we can allocate the second 5 million.
Are they supporting arts and science or just science?
They're supporting the entire building. So they haven't put limits on what the money has to go to. It's just programming wise. A lot of the money will be taken up by some of the STEMs.
One of the other things we're doing with the money too is we're reaching out to the middle schools so that we're going to be able to get middle school students to start to think about these programs and get them engaged in STEAM initiatives at the middle school level so that we can build the interest and we can build the enrollment. Concurrently, we're also working with the county school districts on letting them know about the program and the different pathways that are going to be built into this new school.
Does this also include at some point during the conversation, I don't remember when, but I think I heard that Madison and Cortland, OC and BOCES were also going to be allowed to bring students? Is that so?
Say it again.
Cortland and Madison counties, OC and BOCES.
OC and BOCES
So their
is
students are
it's their
also part of
component
it?
districts. So the other 23 districts are a part of OC and BOCES. We don't have the legislation yet as to whether there will be any BOCES aid, so the students will come in directly from districts. It's just the common glue to all of that is OC and BOCES. So that's the reason they're involved in the process. They're just representing the full group.
But it doesn't mean their students will be part of it.
The county students could be, but not necessarily through BOCES. That
I see.
depends on legislation.
Okay.
So we'll get legislation where we'll be able to charge tuition to these other school districts directly, and then the tuition will come directly to the Syracuse City School District.
No, that's already in the legislation, which is very fortunate for us because we can't technically charge tuition currently. But with this legislation, we can. So for the STEAM school, we will be able to. And we'll set that cost.
Mike, can I ask something real quick?
Yeah,
The acronym MCA, what does that stand for?
maximum cost allowance.
And you mentioned that there are differential reimbursement rates throughout the state. You mentioned Rochester being less. You talked about us being at 98, which is really high. Does that have the potential to be recalculated over the 15-year term? And
No, that gets locked in. So we'll be locked in for this. That's why we're waiting for the lease and all the documents to go to the state for their final approval, and then that's locked in. So it is pretty much locked in right now. They just want the paperwork, but they've already gone through the building. They've looked at the architectural plans, and they're set at that $89 million reimbursement rate.
So I'm a little confused, which is not unusual for me. I'm just looking over the legislation. So so the extra $15 million, it goes from 74 to 89, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's just for the STEAM school, correct?
That's for the construction of the building, yes.
But in the legislation, you want to go up to 122 million?
No, it just, the 89 is what it costs. The 122 includes the borrowing cost, which
The
is what we're
74
responsible
right,
for.
the 74 never included the borrowing cost.
Okay,
So when they did that, they were not thinking, that was what they anticipated it would cost to renovate the building, in terms of the construction cost, not in terms of the borrowing cost. So the borrowing cost was never included.
so the borrowing cost is 122?
No,
All in, yes.
no.
It's 32.
It's right. It's the 89 plus. That's
So,
what makes it the
so the
122.
total is going to be 120.
Correct.
226, right? 122 or 126? What's the
122.
total?
121.6.
Okay, 121.6 is the
That's,
total.
that's the cost of the renovation plus the borrowing cost.
Okay.
So it's not in addition to, it's included.
So you're using building aid well, you're going to pay rent, lease.
Yes, sir.
From the,
Yes.
from the county, and you're using building aid to pay for that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. How does that affect Now, you also are paying, using building aid to pay for any joint school construction projects too, or not?
This is totally separate from the
I know it's separate,
JSCP.
but there's got to be a sort of, some sort of a limit. Isn't there some sort of a limit amount of building aid you can use? As far as like all these different projects?
We send in the information and they've approved of it. They haven't had any issues with
They
our
meaning
limit, the state,
State, okay.
the state.
And
So as long as we're eligible and the project is eligible for building aid, some of our schools that, went through Joint Schools Construction Board, they're not eligible for building aid. But the other projects that we're doing with the $35 million, each one of those projects will be eligible for building aid.
See, when you were, okay, because, I was on the first joint school construction board. And there were some things that were not in the schools and outside the schools that weren't eligible for building aid. And they had to supplement them from other monies.
Right.
Like, you just mentioned the ballpark.
Yep.
The ballpark outside of Fowler wasn't, and when we first did the joint school construction project for Fowler, that ballpark was not eligible.
Right.
So you mentioned those other projects, so now building aid's changed, so you can use monies for that, or what?
I believe the issue with Fowler was that they had maximized the building aid in the building itself, so that they had 10 years where they couldn't do anything more to do that project. The projects that we're doing with the 35 million, each one of those projects will be eligible for building aid.
So I think a good example would be, because I think you were around when we were trying to get some work done at Syracuse STEM at Blodgett,
Yeah.
where we were trying to get like the auditorium and that kind of stuff done.
Right. You couldn't use a non-teachable space, you couldn't fund that,
Right, we were limited
Yeah.
with the amount of MCA that was allocated to that building. Now, through these projects that Mike is talking about, we're able to do that project and then get the reimbursement for it because we're doing it as a separate project.
I mean, the only reason we're asking for this, obviously, we're on, something falls through, and we hope not. But obviously, the city.
We hope not.
Well, no, we hope not, because you guys talk and we have to pay.
Right.
We're the backup. As far as I'm back.
Yeah, we are.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not
Okay.
like, so I mean, we're, as far as any kind of agreement, because that's why you're here before us, obviously.
That's my question on that. So if they were to default, does that come onto the city?
I think the lease does specify that
It does specify.
in no event should any lease obligation be drawn from the city's general fund. I think if there were an event in which the district defaulted, the abstract probably would get involved. I would defer to Joe on that.
Good morning. Joe Barry, First Assistant Corporation Counsel. So the lease that was approved by the Common Council in 2022 addressed this question. Technically, the city is jointly liable with the school district for the rent because the school district is what the state calls a dependent district, and we have a combined city-school budget. The fail-safe mechanism in case of a hopefully unlikely event of a default of the district, which would probably be due to an interruption of state aid, is that the county could put the rent on the city county abstract, the tax abstract that you approve every December. And so that it would be paid like we currently pay for the city libraries and our cost of the jail and other joint city-county projects. And that seemed to be the best backstop option. The county had brought up the issue of sales tax as a potential source, but we rejected that as being not in our best interest. So the backstop is the city-county abstract.
So we have the $35 million to make up the difference between the MCA, what we're getting from the state, and the difference in the borrowing cost. So we have that money. But it didn't make sense for us to take that money and set it aside in fund balance and leave it there and not utilize it over the next 15 years. So the plan is that we will actually be able to use that $35 million twice. We're going to use it for our capital projects, and then we're going to get reimbursed 98% of that over the next 15 years. So we're actually leveraging that $35 million.
And I do think it's important to note that the 2.6, 2.7 million that it would be per year is less than 1% of our budget. So we don't feel there's any problem meeting that obligation.
Less than about 0.5% of our budget.
So when you talk about the total, is the county going to bond for everything?
They are. At one point, the city was looking at how could they help make up the difference. And the county was like, well, you know, we can just, they agreed to go ahead and just borrow the entire amount.
The county ledge has to vote, right?
Yes, they do.
I believe they do, yes.
Right now, they have approval to borrow $74 million. They need approval to borrow the additional $15 million for the rest of the cost of the project.
I want to go back what Joe has said. I was talking about possible, if there's an interruption of state aid. Is that a risk, Joe? Is that a risk we could lose state aid to help fund this project?
It's unusual.
Yeah,
Okay.
no.
All right.
Because the majority of in our district, the majority of our funds are from the state.
Okay.
So they might do a different calculation, but I don't think it's at risk of going away.
Okay, so we want to make sure there's no risk, something comes up down the road.
Yeah.
That we have everything in order. Okay.
Yeah, there's a provision in the current state aid legislator of hold harmless, safe, where you're level with your funding of state aid. I know they're looking at maybe redoing some of the calculations on how state aid is calculated, but I think that would actually be beneficial to the school district because the current calculations really do not take into account to the extent possible of our population in terms of poverty, in terms of ENL students, in terms of special education students. So we've been really working with the state, trying to ask them to go back and revise that state aid formula. And if it is revised in the way that we think it should be, that would actually provide more state aid to us in the future.
We do have less students in the district over the last 3 years, but we have higher needs. So those same students have higher needs, which is just offsetting that difference.
Okay, so we'll have less students, but the needs are there.
Correct, because we have more
Okay.
ENL students, we have more special ed students.
Since it has to go through the county ledge, I guess ask Joe here. I know for us it's 2/3 the bond. Do they need 2/3 too over in the county ledge? Do we know that?
I want to say a supermajority, so if that's
Jeremy said,
2/3,
yeah.
I think so.
You think they're 2/3 too, like we are?
I think so.
Okay. Yeah, is it 2/3, Tim? Okay.
Anything else we can answer for you?
Anybody else? Anything else?
Well, I just hope you have a pretty good lobbying organization over the county ledge. Hopefully they'll go along with this.
Go ahead.
Just a question about, you identified that 250 progressive to getting to 1,000.
Yes,
So 150 from the city, 100 from the county.
yes.
What if we don't get 100 students from the county?
We'll fill it with city students, happily.
So, but isn't part of the financing for the ongoing cost predicated on getting student tuition aid from the county?
That'll help with the operation of the building.
That's what I mean.
We're not counting on it for the lease payment, though.
Not for the lease payment,
Yeah,
but for
yeah.
the
Operations of the building.
operations,
yes.
faculty, staff.
But that would just simply mean that more of our students are involved, so we would incur that cost.
We'd be able to incur that cost.
Absolutely.
Superintendent, what's the baseline for these tuitions to be? What's the projection of that?
Right now, like when we looked at charter school costs or non-public schools, it's somewhere around 14,000 per student.
Per year?
Because yes, but
Include
we're looking at
transportation?
well, we have to actually transport. So
Right, I know you have
Yeah,
to transport
yeah.
them, so I was wondering if that was including the transportation.
So,
Will
no.
we get transportation aid? back for that transportation. The other thing that we're working on, and right now it looks like it may be approved at the state level. Right now, there's additional CTE funding that you get for CTE programs. And right now you only get it for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, but they're looking to add that to 9th graders. So if they do add that to 9th graders, that'll be additional couple $1 million of revenue a year for us. So that'll also help offset the cost because we'll get additional CTE aid for those students.
So the 14,000 per year per student,
That's a base of what it
yeah,
is
a
now.
base, right.
Because we're looking at very specific and upgraded programs, we can actually charge more. So,
but I was going to ask something different. So is
Okay.
that depending on eligibility of financial status of a family when they send their children in, or
no, this is
is
districts.
this like generally
This,
for everyone?
this is from districts. So what we would look for is that balance of what will districts be able to afford to actually have their kids come. So it'll probably be somewhere between that 14 and 20. So probably 17, 18, somewhere in there. That's fair, but it's, like I said, it's higher level programs, so we don't have to stick to the basics.
And again, if we have to bus students from further out, then that'll equate to what?
It really depends on how we design that. If other districts are sending students, they may be responsible for those students' transportation.
All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Superintendent, you said that you were starting with the 9th graders, right?
Yes.
So when do you think that you would start moving the grades up? 10th, 11th, 12th? When is that process going to happen?
Each year.
Each year?
Yeah, fall of 25 is start with 9th graders. Fall of 26, then you
Okay.
have 9th and 10th,
Okay,
and so on and so forth.
okay.
Yeah. So
When's
it's a
the first
phase-in model.
class? Superintendent, when's the first class anticipated?
Fall, 5.
You know, I think all of us are, enthused about this. We all care about this, but, I mean, this, and obviously we all understand the way the finances have changed on almost every project you can think about in central New York or anywhere else. So, but, we just want to make sure it's incumbent of us to ask, where the money's coming from.
Just so I said, and that Mike can probably communicate it better than I can. The reason we're able to do all the things is because, as a district, we're seen as being so fiscally responsible. That's why we're getting all the breaks. That's why we're being allowed to do the things that we're being allowed to do. And that came from the state level.
That
So,
hasn't-
so they're
some
trusting of us.
And some of us who've served here for a long time, that always hasn't been the case.
Right.
Yeah, we've gone through 2 phases of JSCB, and every phase has gone smoothly, and that we've been able to be responsive to the state, and the state, values that. And that's one of the reasons why we get that 98% reimbursement rate, because, they know we're doing what we say we're going to be doing, and we do it correctly.
Superintendent, to Nader's question, for the 100 students from the county, are we seeing the county market and talk to the students in the county,
Yes.
getting them ready? I mean, are they clamoring to get there?
No,
I mean,
no,
are
I think it's going to be overwhelming interest is what I believe.
Okay.
But we are actually holding information sessions over at Jody Manning. Dr. Jody Manning is doing information sessions over at Salt City Market. And there's a number of dates, and that's county students, city students. So everybody's allowed to come get information.
Is that
along
Micron
the way.
driving that, or the county government driving the information sessions? Is Micron pushing to
No,
get
this
students
is
in here?
this is SCSD talking about the STEAM
Okay,
school.
Okay.
Yeah. So no, they're not driving it.
Well, no, I would think that would be a good thing. They need a workforce, so I would hope that they're educating the county students.
And
What it
again,
means
I
to
think we're
come
trying
to
to.
school.
I think we're not trying to lose sight of. There's many other programs in
Right,
there as well.
right.
Right.
So it's not just Micron.
Yeah.
Although they've definitely been a financial help to us. We're promoting the entire school.
So what would happen if would a kid from Oswego County or Madison County be able to get in if he had a spot?
Not
No?
at this point. They're not part of the component districts
I'm just
who
thinking,
signed on. So
freely
there's
on
part of the document is the number of districts who signed on
Okay,
that was interested.
But if
So,
there were
they
spots
kept it to
open?
Onondaga County, I believe.
okay.
Use your microphone.
So, as far as like reaching students now to kind of like train them up to knowing what programs will be offered in the school. What if you don't meet that mark by next year? Like, how will those kids be selected?
So
If that makes sense.
You're talking about kids in general,
Yeah.
or city kids?
City kids, I'm sorry, city kids.
Okay. I don't think there's going to be any question that we'll be able to fill our 150 seats, if not more. And I say that because currently we have about 1,800 career technical education students, and we have programs all over the place, and we have to go to a lottery system because students can't get in to the things that they want to get into, and there's just not enough room. Most of our programs have host 28 students per year. So we got 50, 60, 70 students trying to get into 28 slots. So there's plenty of interest out there of people wanting to do nothing more. And so I don't think it's going to be any problem finding 150 students that want to do these programs at the STEAM school.
And again, we're thinking about, moving forward as our population increases, as some of these businesses, Micron and some of the offsetting businesses come into this community. This will be a great opportunity, a great way to market, just living in the city or sending your kids to the STEAM school. A lot of the people that will be working in these businesses, they'll have children who may have the same interests of them. And this will be a great opportunity to kind of build out and provide an opportunity to show, you live in the city of Syracuse or right around the suburbs here, your children can go to these schools. And that's what we're trying to do.
Will they be required to have certain, like, grade point averages in sciences, math, things like that, to be able to
This is going to be a
enter?
strange answer from an educator, but no.
Okay.
It's actually based on interest, and it's based on passion. So it's almost like shows your interest, shows some of the things that you've done that shows that you really want to go down this road. And that's more of we're trying to get away from the word interview. It's more of a interest survey or passion survey. Say, why are you so passionate about this? And then that's the criteria, first and foremost.
And I just want to get like the school line per se. If someone attended like King School, that's just STEM school, correct?
Correct.
Then where would they go after, and then to go to CT? Like, where's the middle school part?
Well, it's right now, students at Dr. King go to Brighton Academy. That's the line in which, that they normally go to. We are looking at some other possibilities. We just haven't gotten there yet because we have to look at our middle schools. We have to look at our population because one of the conversations is, and this has not been voted on or talked about publicly yet.
It is now.
No, just looking at different options as to the configuration of a Dr. King. Does it become a K-8? Does that make more sense than sending them across town when high schools are right down the street? So it's just a conversation that needs to happen. That's all.
So you're saying K through 8?
I'm not saying that's happening. I'm saying that's a conversation. That's a possibility. So that's not what I'm saying.
Next question.
I'm already.
So I understand the emphasis on technical education is a big component of this. What about the arts?
Yep.
We've talked about it in this community as the arts and culturally. The cultural experience that some of the kids from the suburbs might not have, like our kids have in the city school district. So what are we doing to engage and excite, as you said, the interest, Superintendent, relative to the arts and cultural aspect of what the school can bring? Got a beautiful auditorium, the Lincoln Auditorium, for performances, et cetera. So
the arts are being pushed hard as well. And I think there's multiple opportunities because it's visual arts, it's performing arts. I think more importantly though, it's and we've even tried to incorporate the park right in front of the building to be an outdoor stage studio. So I think a lot of those pieces will pull in the arts and highlight that throughout the city. So it's a big draw actually. That yes, and it's a focus point.
Yeah,
That's why
it's-
we're insisting on STEAM.
Yeah,
versus
it's
STEM.
STEAM, not STEM. And the A is in there. Art's is going to be a major component of the program. We're going to, renovate that auditorium. And it's going to be probably one of the most beautiful auditoriums in the region. And then we're going to leverage that. Some of the programming, when you think of CTE, but you also think that there's going to be kids that are going to, have to handle cameras and video equipment and lighting and staging, in addition to, performing and those types of things. So that's all going to be inclusive in this program.
A lot of folks know that Lincoln Auditorium, of course, was the home of the Syracuse Symphony for many years. My dad played in the symphony too, and it was like an event place where, was not only tied to the school, but anybody could, they would put on great events there all the time too, musical events. So it's good to put that back into use.
And we have partnered with the Historical Society on those concepts in the building. That
It was built before the advent of electronic, electronic sound, so, it was perfect acoustically.
So
And if you look at the seats, they're about this wide too. We've
people
changed
were
as a
thinner in
society.
those
Yeah, I don't like
Yes.
it. I don't like it.
Yeah, we've changed, so we have to do something about that.
Talking to CNY Arts about?
We have a number of partners. I don't know all of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, they are the regional council for all of Central New York.
Yeah.
Definitely should be at the table.
Well, I would be surprised if they're not.
Making deals here, Councilor Paniagua, right now?
I would be
I'm
surprised
trying.
if they're not.
And this is my last question, but I'm huge on uniforms. Is that a component at all?
Not at this point, but that's a bigger conversation. That just came up recently at our last board meeting, so,
Okay,
yeah.
that should be largely considered.
I agree with
You don't have an opinion, do you?
Councilor Rouser.
I do.
Well, it'll cost about $2.5 million to give all K-8 kids uniforms, so if the city wants to help us out.
It's a public meeting, Mike.
Any other questions? Anybody? Do you have a question? We? Okay. So what time is that then? Okay. Thank you. All right, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
That's right.